what we're going through here, and I get to kind of strengthen up some of the stuff that we're covering here. So if you are in that class, then you'll get to hear some of the stuff we've already gone through and covered, but it'll help solidify it a little bit, and then we'll also be able to build on it, and that's kind of what we're doing. Not that I intend to hold anything back necessarily here, but there will be things that just naturally come out differently, because after I've been able to go through it a time or two, then it actually unlocks other things that I hadn't considered or thought about before. So anyway, I want to encourage you again to seminary, but as we've been going through this, I need to try to at least very quickly remind you about the kingdom. You know, as far as the Bible is concerned, only Matthew contains the phrase kingdom of heaven. In fact, in class, I said, I told them I always get it confused. Which one is it? Is it kingdom of heaven or kingdom of God? When I quote something, I'll confuse it a lot. I'll say, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of, and I said blank. And Brother Jared quickly, cockily unmuted and said, heaven. And I said, no, you're wrong. And he goes, and I said, I know you're wrong. And the reason I know you're wrong is because the only time the kingdom of heaven is used is in the book of Matthew, and that reference is in John. So it can't be kingdom of heaven. But I do that all the time. Before teaching this lesson in this kind of depth, I did that all the time. I think I might have mentioned in class that if I meet a girl, her name's Joanne or Joanna, I have a hard time remembering when I see them. I don't know why. It's a brain block of some sort. Is it Joanne or is it Joanna? And so I'm like, I try not to say their name. And there's others like that. I'm trying to think of. I can't remember what they are. There's another one definitely that I do the same thing with it, and it's something that can either have an A on the end or not. But for whatever reason, that A on the end, it makes it hard for me. I can't remember it. Kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven is one of those. It's kind of like that. It's like I keep interchanging it. In fact, on the way back today, I asked my dad the same one, and he said kingdom of heaven, and I said nope, it's not. It's not, but I think we all do that. It's hard to remember because it feels interchangeable. It feels like you could say heaven or God, but only Matthew uses kingdom of heaven as a phrase, all right? Everywhere else it's kingdom of God. But sometimes Matthew does use the reference kingdom of God. He does say that. More often than not, he says kingdom of heaven. And so why? Well, I had some reasons for it. In fact, the one I had here, that was the top note on the page. I'm gonna go through this. I don't know if we'll get to go through all of this in my class because it'll just take too much time. Let's see here. Matthew, seeing that he is the only one that uses the kingdom of heaven as a phrase, one of the reasons that most Bible teachers or commentators believe or express is that they think it's because he was afraid to use the name God, or he was afraid to say the name of God. Because the Jews in the Old Testament, they did not say the name of God. It was too holy. And so they wouldn't say the full name. If they wrote it out, they would only write certain letters of it, but they wouldn't write it all the way out because it was a reverent name, it was a holy name, and they just, for fear of God, for the holiness of that name, they wouldn't say it, and they wouldn't even write it all the way out. And so they say that's why. But the problem with that concept or philosophy is that Matthew does also say, some places he does say, for instance, one of those is, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. In that case, he doesn't say heaven. He says, seek ye first the kingdom of God. So he does use the name of God. He's not afraid to do it. And if that were the case, then that would mean that, Mark, Luke, and John apparently didn't have any reverence for the name of God. Only Matthew did, and that's just absurd. That's not why he did not use the name or the phrase God all the way through like everybody else, okay? But Matthew, what's interesting about the book of Matthew, he's really big on using heaven and earth. Heaven and earth. That's a lot in the book of Matthew. If I ask you, any place you can think of where in the book of Matthew he uses both heaven and earth in the same sentence? Can anybody give me one? Heaven and earth. And maybe you don't think you're not sure whether it's in Matthew. Maybe just anywhere in the Bible where heaven and earth are expressed in the same thought. And they're extreme opposites, right? And the reason it's important is because the kingdom of God, really, remember we talked about how it is in the position of God where he sits at his seat. Heaven is my throne and earth is my footstool. So the kingdom of God is where God sits in heaven. All right? But the kingdom of God is also present among us on earth, but only in a very specific place by extension. All right? And that is wherever God has chosen for it to be. All right? The king, not everything upon the earth is the kingdom of God. All right? It all belongs to him. Remember that. It all belongs to him. And it's a little hard to try to cut it up and put it in the right place because we know that even in the book of Daniel, it says that God raises up kings in their kingdoms. So he's in control of it all. But the Bible does tell us that there are kingdoms of this world and that there is the kingdom of God. And it does say in the book of Revelation that in the end, the kingdoms of this world will be or become the kingdom of our God. They'll be absorbed into it. He will be the king over all of the kingdoms of the world. Okay? So that is to say that right now, technically, there are those kingdoms that are the kingdoms of men or the kingdoms that are under the hand of Satan, and there is that which would be considered the kingdom of God, and specifically that has been or had been the nation of Israel. All right? As we get into the New Testament, things are shifting and changing a little bit, but we won't get into that just now. Okay? So Matthew wants us to understand that the kingdom of God is in heaven, but it is also on earth, all right, by extension. And so he uses both heaven and earth quite often. All right, I'm going to give you these, and then I'm just going to ask you to read and turn to them. Sister Trish, Matthew 5, verse number 5. And then if we want to just stay in chapter 5, why don't we have Brother Chase read verse 18 and Brother Ray, 35. So Matthew 5, Sister Trish, you read 5. Brother Chase, you read verse 18. And then Brother Ray, you read verse 35. All right, we ready? Matthew 5, 5.
Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
Okay, now this one does not have both heaven and earth in it, but I wanted to point this out because, again, Matthew makes several references to heaven, but he also makes several to earth. And this is the reference in the Bible that says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the what? Kingdom of heaven. And it also here says that they shall inherit the earth. All right? And so there is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. So he makes a reference to the things that are achieved by those who trust God and who surrender to him. Kingdom of heaven is one of them, and also the kingdom upon earth is also another one. They shall inherit the earth. So there is the kingdom, or that which pertains to heaven, which is important to us. And there also is that part of God's kingdom that pertains to the earth. And that is also important and promised to us. And Matthew makes mention of both. Okay? How about verse 18, Brother Chase?
For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled.
All right, till heaven and earth pass. Now, this is a little, I probably shouldn't have used this because the heaven that's passing is not the kingdom of heaven so much. But the fact that heaven and earth is mentioned, just Matthew puts those two together an awful lot. But this one really probably isn't as applicable because of the heaven it's actually dealing with. Verse 35, though, Ray.
Nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king.
Okay, 34, we're going to have to catch that, I think, too, probably.
But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne.
Okay, don't swear by heaven, for it is God's throne. And then verse 35, or was it 35? Yeah, 35.
Nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of
All right, so don't swear by heaven, for it is God's throne. Don't swear by earth, for it is his footstool. All right, that is that which pertains to the kingdom of God. Don't swear by Jerusalem because it's his city. Okay, see that? And so that kind of gives us some specific reference. Matthew chapter 6, verse number 10. Let's see, how about we get Sister Sharon, you want to grab that? Verse 10, Matthew 6:10, and then Brother Dave, verses 19 through 20. 6:19 through 20. So Sister Sharon, you get 6:10, and then after she's done, you'll get 19 and 20. Go for it.
6:10.
Yep.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven.
Okay. The prayer to God should be that the will of God is done on earth as it is in heaven. Okay? So we find heaven and earth. The position of God's throne and the position of his footstool right there in the same phrase. Okay? And verses 19 and 20, Brother Dave.
Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust can corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal.
All right, again, just a reference to heaven and earth in the same thought process. Matthew just really wants to show the difference between the two, heaven and earth. They're opposite extremes, and yet the kingdom of God is present in both via the throne and via the footstool, okay? But again, Matthew really just uses these an awful lot together to show the two differences between. Chapter 11 and verse 25, Brother Bush. And then I'll have Brother Brock grab chapter 16 and verse 19.
At that time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes.
All right, Father of heaven and in earth. Okay, so again, both are just used again in the same breath, in the same sentence. 16:19, Brother Brock.
And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven.
Okay, and then along with that, Brother Brown, if you want to grab Matthew 18:18, goes along with this. Matthew 18:18, Brother Brown. Yeah.
Verily I say unto you, whosoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whosoever shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven.
Okay, and then Brother Andre, are you there by chance?
Yeah.
Grab verse, I've got 19 written down.
All right, Matthew 18:19.
Yeah.
Again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven.
Okay, heaven and earth. Sister Lexi, 23:9. And then Brother Steve, 24:30. And then Sister Rochelle, 24:35. So 23:9.
And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven.
All right, no man father upon the earth. There's one Father, he's in heaven. Okay? And then Brother Steve, 24:30.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
Okay, and Sister Rochelle, 35.
Heaven and earth shall pass away, but thy words shall not pass away.
And then the last one I have in Matthew is 28:18. Matthew 28:18. Sister Debbie? All right. So again, you just see a lot of the use of both heaven and earth, various contexts, but Matthew does this a lot, an awful lot. And that is one notable characteristic of Matthew, besides that he's the only one that uses the phrase kingdom of heaven, is that he does also quite often use both heaven and earth in various contexts together, showing similarities and differences, obviously, but definitely uses a lot of these phrases, okay? So it's important to recognize, again, that there is a heaven and there is an earth. And we kind of should understand the difference between the two. One is of a spiritual nature, and the other one is of a material and physical nature. And ultimately, it will all be the kingdom of God, and there won't be anything besides that. A new heaven and a new earth, we're told. But there won't be anything besides the kingdom of God wholly and totally, okay? So that's all we're going to do for tonight. So just pack that away, and we'll just kind of keep plugging forward. All right, anybody have any thoughts on any of that? Okay. That's why I say I had that stuff kind of in my notes for class on Monday, but I, never made it that far and probably wouldn't have really had us read them all anyway. Just give them out as references, but so that gives us a little something that everybody else just won't get necessarily. All right, and there may be others that I just didn't put down there, but that might be kind of an interesting project to just go see what else you can find that Matthew does, speaking concerning earth or speaking concerning heaven. Sometimes he speaks concerning earth and heaven isn't mentioned, and vice versa. But several, amazingly, where it's just both. So, all right, is there anything else? All right, let's go ahead and stand. Trying to do my best to keep us down and give us a little bit of time to interact and fellowship here. And all right, there's nothing else. Any other special prayer requests?